This video is something of a plea to the federal Liberals to please stop sleepwalking us to a political disaster, and for all that is good and holy, shift the terrain with some bold new ideas. The public opinion polls are, in a word, grim. As I record this, Abacus Data has just released its latest federal political opinion survey and found that the Conservatives still 20 percentage points ahead of the Liberals. The Conservatives lead in every region except Quebec, where the Bloc still leads, and with every age cohort. Abacus reports that the Liberals at 22% support are polling at their lowest level since they were elected in 2015, meaning they have received no bounce from their most recent federal budget, nor from a host of housing announcements, nor from the well-advised increase in the capital gains tax, nor from the Bank of Canada's long-awaited interest rate cut. Ouch. So my key takeaway, as the government seeks to reset ahead of its final year before the fall 2025 election, it desperately needs to shake things up. And for those of us who are deeply anxious about what a Pierre Poilievre majority government would mean for the climate emergency, we urgently need the government to do just that. I'm going to leave the matter of whether Justin Trudeau should stay or go to others, but on policy, what is beyond dispute is that these folks need to cease what feels like a painful death march and reinvigorate the terrain with exciting ideas that can finally change this dreadful script that has characterized the last 2 years. Now, what role can and should climate policy have in such an effort to reset the political dial? My perception in dealing with government representatives is that there is this prevailing sentiment among them that they've done enough on climate and now they have limited desire to further poke the bear. That's a mistake. They have not done enough, but they do indeed need a new approach. It's time to stop being so damn boring and invite the fight with the fossil fuel industry and its political servants. Among the most intriguing findings in the recent Abacus survey were the results when the pollsters asked those who prioritized a given issue which party is best able to handle that issue. And interestingly, climate was the only domain in which the Liberals strongly outperformed the Conservatives as well as the NDP. So my advice to them is to lean in on that. And this question also had some tough lessons for the NDP. Its strengths are in the domains of Indigenous reconciliation and inequality and poverty, and to a lesser extent, healthcare. But the results on climate and environment should give them great pause, where their credibility, frankly, among those who prioritize this issue registers on par with the Conservatives and less than half what it is for the Liberals and the Green Party. Now, I have to confess, the NDP results there somewhat surprised me. I would say that the party's lead critics on this file, MPs Laurel Collins and Charlie Angus in particular, have, in my view, been stellar performers of late, leading the charge against the fossil fuel corporations. Maybe it's that the party leader, Jagmeet Singh, is virtually invisible on climate. And compounding the problem is that to the extent that, for better or worse, mostly worse, that the climate file is dominated by the issue of carbon pricing, the leader seems to dither and lack conviction. This is going to present a major problem for the NDP because climate-anxious voters represent a big chunk of their potential base, yet on this issue, they find the party's performance wanting. Back to the Liberals. See, while the Liberals are moving on climate, they are doing so in such a ponderous, incremental, and technocratic manner that they have failed to gain anything politically. They appear desperate not to overly antagonize the oil and gas industry. And so we have the Sustainable Jobs Act that will result in pretty much nothing for at least 5 years, an act that manages to suck all the lifeblood out of what was a widespread movement for just transition. We have this lackadaisical stroll towards a modest oil and gas emissions cap that may or may not see the light of day before the next election. We have low carbon business tax credits that are undersubscribed and poorly deployed with a heavy focus on carbon capture and storage. We have much needed zero emission vehicle and electricity mandates, but where the target dates are set for the next decade. Are you still awake? See, none of this, let us agree, has the capacity to capture the imagination or excite the electorate. If the governing Liberals want to truly shake things up on climate, what would they do? Well, first of all, and I know I'm a broken record here, but they would bring in an audacious youth climate corps. Kick it off with $1 billion annually as a down payment that invites tens of thousands of young people to train up and serve in the battle of our lives, responding to extreme weather events and undertaking building retrofits and working on renewable energy projects and that kind of thing. Polling that we commissioned from Abacus, we at the Climate Emergency Unit, last fall finds that such a program would be a big political winner. Second, take Charlie Angus's private members bill, an act to prohibit fossil fuel advertising, and make it law. Yes, the oil and gas industry will holler blue murder. That is the surest proof of its effectiveness. But after what will be, I'm afraid in all likelihood, another record summer of fires and heat and other unnatural disasters, why not come back to the House of Commons in the fall ready to name the culprits and limit their ability to sow confusion on the urgent need for climate action? Third, I think the government needs to rethink those climate-related business tax credits. The take-up rate is weak, the political payoff even weaker, and redeploy billions of dollars towards big-ticket, high-visibility public climate infrastructure investments, renewable energy projects, public transit, interprovincial grid upgrades, zero-emission affordable housing that will employ thousands in well-paying jobs. And, critically, the government must link the fight for a safe climate with the battle to tackle inequality and the affordability crisis. The cost of living is, after all, what tops the public's list of concerns. Let's go big on items that free people from oppressive monthly utility and transportation costs. Free heat pumps for households with incomes under 100,000. Free transit passes for modest income households. Ambitious funding for deep housing retrofits. Enhanced rebates for e-bikes, that kind of thing. And let's pay for that with new taxes on wealth and windfall profits and high-emitting luxury items like private jets and outsized vehicles and yachts. That would be politically popular. Now, rumor was that the Liberals were actually considering bringing in a windfall profits tax on oil and gas companies in the lead up to the last federal budget, and then Minister Friedland took a pass. That was a huge error, and the matter should be revisited and introduced in the fall economic update. Doing so would offer a sextuple win. So first, a windfall profits tax is hugely popular. Polling conducted last March found 62% of Canadians support such a tax. Second, it would secure ongoing NDP support. The NDP would be happy to vote for such a measure, giving the government time to shift the political terrain ahead of the election. Third, the climate movement would be over the moon. Failure to include a windfall profits tax was a source of deep disappointment with the spring budget, whereas this single item would unleash that movement's enthusiasm. Fourth, a windfall profits tax on oil and gas could raise close to $1 billion a year, enough revenues to just about double the newly introduced monthly disability benefit, and allowing the government to re-win support from that constituency that felt, frankly, quite let down by the last budget. Fifth, a windfall profits tax would help lower inflation because of the outsized role that oil and gas profits have played in rising prices. And sixth, vitally, a windfall profits tax would bring on a good fight with the oil and gas industry, which at this stage would also be good politics. The Liberals have almost nothing to lose in Alberta and Saskatchewan and much to gain elsewhere. Let Pierre Poilievre rail and explain why he doesn't want to impose this excess profits tax on the most profitable corporations in human history. It will expose him as the faux populist that he is. Like, what's not to like here? And it's time for progressive parties to take some big risks and make some big, bold moves. But time's ticking if they hope to shift the dial.